Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal black moon Lilith in the sign of Virgo. And before I begin, I want to give a shout out to advancedastrology.com. That's where I obtained the information that I felt was the most in alignment with how I wanted to present this. And I've mentioned this before, that Black Moon Lilith sometimes is hard to express because there are different takes on it and what it signifies as an influence for all of us. And I saw something here from this website. I'm just going to read it verbatim of what Lilith represents in astrology. Um, Lilith is a female demon in mythology. In astrology, it is linked with fear, shame, anger, rejection, vengeance. It is in some way similar to Pluto, but it has strong feminine quality. Lilith represents the dark feminine, oppressed by patriarchy. Now, that last sentence is a bit contradictory for me, because if something is the dark version of itself, the dark feminine, then the patriarchy, we could say, is toxic masculinity. So why should the feminine be dark? Because it is oppressed. Um, I suppose the reactionary quality of anything in life produces kind of the shadow elements coming to the surface. I don't know. In any case, Virgo is the sign that rules the sixth house in astrology and is connected with our service to others, which means work. But work is a loaded word, isn't it? It sounds like, drudgery, slavery, something that is that you have to do. But I'm talking about the spirit of service. It's also Virgo rules health matters and your routine on a daily basis, which is really symbolic of how you organize your time. So suffice it to say that Virgo is connected to practical matters. It's an earth sign, and how you function on a daily basis. What kind of work you do, or how you work, health matters, and the ability to organize. And so when you have Black Moon Lilith involved here, there is this issue surrounding, Virgos can be about perfectionism and things like that. And so this can distort that, and it can create someone who is extreme in these matters. And one thing about Virgo is it can be the virgin or the maiden, the pure, it can be connected to purity. And also, like I said, perfectionism. And so what this particular site mentions is being shamed as a child. And that meaning that, maybe being criticized excessively, and that leads you to be that way towards other people, but also towards yourself. And that's a very important thing, because when you are a victim of criticism, it means that that person is very likely as hard or even harder on themselves. Sometimes it's difficult to believe that because you're so focused on being on the receiving end of criticism, but it's really true, is that people who are very hard on others are the hardest on themselves. And the other piece in this is that you're going to go through life with being led by logic. Now that may seem like a good thing, right? But it can be the dark side of logic, which means that it's kind of not really inspirational. It's they even use the word cynical, which I don't know. I haven't really thought of Virgo as a cynical sign. Maybe clinical is how I would put it, where everything is just about precision, about doing things the right way, about perfectionism, about purity. I didn't see anything mentioned here, but I could certainly see somebody with this Black Moon Lilith having OCD in one form or another, being obsessive compulsive disorder. And this is because that quest for perfection, but also trying to fight off chaos, can lead to doing certain rituals that are of an obsessive nature to kind of make the person, it's really to counter anxiety, and it's also born out of anxiety at the same time. So it's kind of interesting, OCD. But anyway, it's possible that you were shamed or bullied for your intellect. It almost seems hard to believe, but sometimes people live in an environment where learning is not valued, where education isn't valued. And I'm not talking about formal education, but just somebody who is active with their mind expansion. And so the nature of Virgo is to be a critical thinker, and also just to be critical too, but I mean to be a critical thinker, to be analytical. But of course, this can be taken too far. You can overanalyze your way through life. And this is one of the problems because, for instance, I think also because Virgo is an earth sign, this could lend itself to atheism. They actually mentioned that. And I think that's because all earth signs, it's like, show me the proof, show me tangible evidence of something. And that can keep people earthbound. And, the things that are true in this, that are the most true might be the most invisible. And the things that are the most temporary and therefore the most illusory can be tangible in a paradoxical sort of way. So one of the things that they mentioned on this site is that you might tend to see things in black and white. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think where they're going with that is from the perspective of Lilith being very extreme and Virgo being about, being ruled by Mercury, being about thoughts, opinions, and things like that. And so that would lend itself to extreme opinions. But Virgo is a mutable sign, so it tends to be flexible. I do think that perhaps there might be attitudes, and again, this can stem from shame in childhood, that lends a person to hold certain ideas that do tend to be kind of rigid, because it's like, okay, this is right, this is wrong. Now, with that purity angle, sex can be something that is very problematic for this position, because Virgo is the virgin, and yet there's that rebellious quality of Lilith. So certainly all of the things that I've mentioned in terms of organization, control, maybe like an excessive level, an OCD level, can be the opposite, can be somebody who embraces chaos or not being organized and things like that. Your family of origin, yeah, that's what they were mentioning. They were saying that you might have come from a family that rejected God and, was an atheistic, and maybe it's also like that intellectual kind of a background that thinks that religion is primitive or anti-intellectual. So you might have come from that background that rejected a higher being, a creator, God, or you might be someone who came from a family that was, immersed in that, and they projected those puritanical beliefs onto you about sex is dirty, shameful. And so either you can take that all in, you can internalize those beliefs, or you might rebel against them and become the harlot, or I don't know what the male version of that is. You can become the fallen woman, or I guess I can't say anything but a player as a man, and really engage in sex in a rebellious way to kind of counter that teaching that's very repressive and shameful. But even with that, that can be something that is very reactive. So it's not coming from a genuine place. They mention a lot with the repression associated with sex, and they said that you might have even had traumatic experiences in this area of life. Now, I don't know where they're getting that specifically, because I think it just can be simply that people are taught that sex is something to be ashamed of. I don't think it has to be a traumatic experience. Oh, but you know what? Maybe because of its association with purity in the sign of Virgo, and then being that Black Moon Lilith can have that connection like Pluto. I think it does have a connection to sexuality, so maybe there is an actual connection. If that's the case, it will tend to be more towards the repression, I would say. They don't really indicate acting out sexually, but I think that can always be the case. And they even mention being an ice queen. They use that term because they're saying that, Virgo is not well, I'm paraphrasing, that Virgo isn't a romantic sign. And that it's hard to kind of seduce you because you are very critical of other people. So you're, seeing those flaws. If you're a Scorpio, if you have Pluto in the first house or something like that, then you're really going to be very perceptive about other people's motivations and their basic psychological makeup, and that will make you more likely to be able to determine like where somebody's coming from in that sense. So that's kind of interesting. But in general, what I would say is that it's always about refinement, It's always about, not, taking gross concepts and running with them. So in other words, excellence, a quest for excellence rather than perfection. So the intention is in that direction. A humility rather than being hard on yourself, rejecting of yourself. The quest for modesty and wholesomeness rather than totally rejecting sensuality as something that is bad, but really being very discerning in that area. It's kind of like very fine line, but it's something that is life affirming versus life denying. All right, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.